If you are watching the stock ticker right now, you are witnessing something that financial analysts swore was mathematically impossible. You are watching the absolute bedrock of the North American economy crack open and swallow billions of dollars in real time. If you have money in an American bank, if you hold stocks, or if you rely on the global financial system to pay your mortgage, you need to sit down and listen very carefully, because as of this morning, the United States and Canada are no longer just fighting a trade war over aluminum and lumber. They are fighting a total, unrestricted financial war. And Donald Trump is currently losing it on a historic scale. Just hours ago, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney did the one thing the White House believed he would never have the absolute nerve to do. He didn't just place retaliatory tariffs on American goods. He didn't just close a border crossing. He went straight for the jugular of the American empire. Through an emergency directive issued by the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions in Ottawa, the Canadian government has officially suspended the operating licenses of all United States Schedule II and Schedule III banks operating within Canadian borders. Let me translate that from bureaucratic financial speak into plain, terrifying English. Canada just kicked Wall Street out of the country. They have completely blocked institutions like JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America from conducting new business, clearing transactions, or moving capital across the northern border. Over $113 billion in American banking assets are now effectively frozen in a regulatory chokehold. And Donald Trump, the man who started this fight, is sitting in the Oval Office with absolutely no leverage to get it back. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly how this catastrophic failure of American leadership happened. I am going to show you the exact mechanisms Mark Carney used to turn Canada's banking sector into a weapon of mass financial destruction. I am going to explain why Wall Street is currently in a state of absolute unmitigated panic. And most importantly, I am going to tell you exactly how Trump's obsession with tariffs is about to make your life significantly more expensive. This is not a drill. The era of the United States dictating the terms of the global economy just hit a brick wall. To understand the sheer magnitude of this shockwave, you have to look at the chain of events that led us to this morning. For over a year, Donald Trump has been using the United States economy as a blunt instrument. He slapped universal 25% tariffs on Canadian imports, claiming it would bring manufacturing back to the United States. He threatened to tax Canadian energy. He treated the largest, most integrated bilateral trade relationship on the face of the earth like a cheap real estate negotiation. He thought he could squeeze Ottawa until they broke. He listened to advisors who told him that Canada's economy was simply a subset of America's, a dependency that would inevitably fold the moment the pressure got too high. He fundamentally believed that Canada needed the United States more than the United States needed Canada. But he vastly underestimated the man sitting across the chessboard. Mark Carney is not a reality television star. He is not a populist who governs by late-night social media tantrums. He is a globally respected, deeply connected former central banker. He ran the Bank of Canada. He ran the Bank of England. He understands the plumbing of the global financial system better than anyone in the Trump administration. When Trump threatened to escalate the tariffs this week, demanding outrageous concessions that would effectively surrender Canadian economic sovereignty, Carney didn't run to the cameras to shout insults. He went into a boardroom with the CEOs of Canada's big six banks. You have to understand how different the Canadian banking system is from the American system. The United States has thousands of fragmented regional banks. It is chaotic, decentralized, and prone to spectacular failures. Canada has 6 massive, hyper-stable, heavily regulated financial fortresses. Together, the Royal Bank of Canada, TD, Scotia, CIBC, and National Bank control trillions of dollars and possess an incredible amount of unified institutional power. Carney realized that while Trump was focused on the movement of physical goods, trucks carrying steel, trains carrying lumber, pipelines moving oil, the real vulnerability of the United States was the movement of capital. American banks rely on their Canadian subsidiaries and branches to service massive corporate clients, to finance cross-border automotive supply chains, and to clear billions in daily international trades. It is a highly lucrative, completely integrated loop. So Carney simply cut the wire. Simply, the directive issued this morning invokes national economic security protocols. It states that due to the arbitrary and deeply destabilizing trade actions of the United States government, American financial institutions are temporarily stripped of their clearing privileges. They cannot process Canadian dollar transactions. They cannot issue new commercial loans in Canada. The pipeline of money flowing from Bay Street in Toronto back to Wall Street in New York has been welded shut. The immediate fallout is something you have to see to believe. Let's look at the receipts. Look at the trading floors in Manhattan right now. The stock prices of the major American banks are in an absolute freefall. JP Morgan Chase alone saw billions of dollars in market capitalization wiped out in the first 15 minutes of trading. Why? Because investors suddenly realized that the American financial sector is no longer immune to Trump's trade wars. For years, Wall Street cheered on, or at least tolerated, Trump's aggressive trade policies, because the tariffs mostly hurt the working class. They hurt the people buying groceries and washing machines. The bankers always assumed their money was safe. They assumed the sacred flow of capital would never be touched. Mark Carney just proved them wrong. He dragged Wall Street directly onto the battlefield. And the panic isn't just contained to the banks. Think about the massive American corporations that rely on those banks to operate their Canadian divisions. Think about Walmart Canada. Think about Ford and General Motors. Their payrolls, their vendor payments, their daily cash sweeps are entirely dependent on those American banking channels. With those channels blocked, corporate treasurers are scrambling, desperately trying to open emergency accounts with Canadian banks just to keep the lights on. It is a logistical nightmare of epic proportions, intentionally engineered by Ottawa to inflict maximum, highly targeted pain on the American donor class. And how is the White House responding? With absolute predictable chaos? Sources inside the West Wing are reporting that Donald Trump was completely blindsided. His trade advisors, the people who told him a trade war with Canada would be easy to win, never modeled a scenario where Canada would weaponize its financial regulator. They were so obsessed with 19th century concepts like steel tariffs that they completely missed the 21st century reality of financial warfare. We are hearing that the president spent the morning screaming at his Treasury Secretary, demanding that the United States retaliate by seizing Canadian banking assets in America. But here is the terrifying reality that the White House is just now waking up to. They can't. If Donald Trump tries to seize the assets of TD Bank or RBC in the United States, he will trigger a global financial meltdown. The Canadian Big Six banks are deeply embedded in the American economy. They hold massive portfolios of American commercial real estate. They provide crucial liquidity to the U.S. municipal bond market. If Trump attacks them, he doesn't just hurt Canada. He blows up the retirement accounts of millions of American citizens. He freezes credit for American small businesses. It would be financial suicide. And Mark Carney knows it. Carney has effectively built a financial deadman switch. He has trapped Trump in a corner where any aggressive retaliation by the United States will result in catastrophic damage to the American economy. This is the profound difference between the two leaders. Trump acts on impulse, driven by ego and a desperate need to look tough for his political base. He throws punches without thinking about the counterattack. Carney acts on strategy. He spent months quietly analyzing the vulnerabilities of the American system, stress testing the legal frameworks, and aligning his domestic institutions. When he finally made his move, it wasn't a warning shot, it was a checkmate. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't post an angry rant in all caps. He just calmly and methodically altered the regulatory code. And in doing so, he brought the most powerful financial district on earth to its knees. This is what real leadership looks like in a crisis. It is calm, it is precise, and it is absolutely ruthless when protecting national sovereignty. But we need to zoom out and look at the global implications of this, because the rest of the world is watching this unfold with their jaws on the floor. For decades, the United States dollar and the American banking system have been the unquestioned center of global commerce. The countries tolerated American overreach because the U.S. financial system was considered the safest, most stable harbor on the planet. But by provoking Canada into this unprecedented action, Donald Trump has exposed a massive crack in the armor of American financial hegemony. Europe is watching this. China is watching this. The rising economies of the global South are watching this. They are seeing that the United States is so erratic, so untrustworthy, that even its closest neighbor, its most deeply integrated ally, felt compelled to sever financial ties to protect itself. If Canada cannot trust the United States, who can? We are already seeing the ripple effects. Reports are surfacing that European central banks are quietly beginning to stress test their own exposures to U.S. financial institutions. Foreign investors are looking at the chaos in Washington and asking themselves if it is truly safe to park their capital in a country whose president treats global trade like a personal vendetta. This is the invisible cost of America first. It destroys the one thing that truly underpins the global economy: trust. Mark Carney didn't just block a few banks today. He publicly stripped the United States of its credibility. And now we have to bring this down to you, the person watching this video, the person wondering how a fight between billionaires and politicians is going to affect your daily life. You are going to feel this, and you are going to feel it soon. When American banks take a massive hit to their balance sheets, when billions of their assets are frozen abroad, they don't just absorb the loss, they pass it on to you. They are going to tighten their lending standards immediately. If you are applying for a mortgage next month, your interest rate is going to be higher. If you are trying to get a loan to buy a car, it is going to be harder to qualify. If you run a small business and you need a line of credit to make payroll, the bank is going to look at you with far more scrutiny. Capital is going to dry up. The flow of money that keeps the American economy moving is going to constrict because the banks are suddenly terrified of the geopolitical risk created by their own government. And then there is the inflation. Trump's tariffs were already driving up the cost of goods. But this banking blockade is going to pour gasoline on the fire. Supply chains rely on complex letters of credit and cross-border financing to move goods. With those financial bridges burned, the cost of importing anything from Canada, from the lumber used to build American homes, to the critical minerals used in American electronics, to the energy that powers the American Northeast, is going to skyrocket. You are going to pay for Donald Trump's ego every time you go to the hardware store. You are going to pay for it every time you pay your heating bill. You are going to pay for it every time you look at your shrinking 401k. The administration will try to tell you that this is Canada's fault. They will send their press secretaries out to say that Mark Carney is acting unfairly, that he is attacking the American worker. Do not believe the spin. Canada didn't start this fire. They just built a firebreak to stop it from burning down their house. This crisis rests entirely, 100%, on the shoulders of Donald Trump. He pushed a sovereign nation to the absolute brink, assuming they would surrender. He played a game of chicken with a Mack truck, and now the American economy is getting crushed under the wheels. So what happens in the next 48 hours? We are entering the most dangerous phase of this conflict. Scenario A, the market forces a surrender. This is the scenario Carney is banking on. The stock market continues to plunge. The CEOs of JP Morgan, Citi, and Bank of America march into the Oval Office and tell Trump in no uncertain terms that he has to end the trade war immediately. They force him to drop the tariffs and sign a humiliating climb-down agreement just to get their Canadian assets unfrozen. It would be a total political defeat for Trump, but it would save the economy. Scenario B, the ego escalation. Trump refuses to back down. His narcissism won't allow him to admit that he got outplayed by a Canadian prime minister. Instead of dropping the tariffs, he doubles down. He attempts to invoke emergency powers to restrict the operations of Canadian banks in the United States, ignoring the warnings of his own Treasury Department. If he does this, we are looking at a full-blown international financial crisis. We are talking about credit markets freezing entirely. We are talking about a severe, sudden recession that makes the 2008 financial crash look like a warm-up act. It is mutually assured economic destruction, and Trump might just be unhinged enough to push the button. Scenario C, the legislative intervention. The American business class panics so deeply that they turn on the president. Congress, terrified of facing voters in the middle of an economic collapse, threatens to pass veto-proof legislation stripping Trump of his tariff authorities. It would fracture the Republican Party and create a constitutional crisis, but it might be the only way to pull the steering wheel away from a madman before the car goes over the cliff. Whatever happens, the illusion of American invincibility has been shattered. For the last century, the United States operated under the assumption that it could dictate terms to the world. It assumed that its economic gravity was so immense that no nation could ever pull away. Today, Mark Carney didn't just pull away. He turned the gravity off. He proved that competence, strategy, and institutional stability can defeat loud, chaotic populism. He proved that a middle power, acting with surgical precision, can bring a superpower to a dead stop. As you watch the red numbers flash across your screen today, as you watch the White House scramble to explain a disaster they completely created, ask yourself one question. Who do you trust with your future? Do you trust the man who treats the global economy like a casino, recklessly gambling your livelihood for a quick headline? Or do you look north to a leader who understands the math, who protects his people, and who just executed the most brilliant financial defense in modern history? The old world order is dead, and Donald Trump is the one who killed it. Mark Carney is just the man writing the obituary. This story is developing by the minute. The markets are volatile, the political rhetoric is escalating, and the financial future of North America is hanging by a thread. The mainstream media is going to try to downplay this. They are going to frame it as a standard trade dispute. They won't tell you the truth about how badly the United States just got outmaneuvered. But we will. Make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the notification bell, because when the next domino falls, when the true cost of this banking blockade hits the American consumer, you are going to need to know exactly what is happening and how to protect yourself. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Did Mark Carney just save Canada? Or did he just push the global economy over the edge? And more importantly, can the United States survive another year of this chaos? I read every single comment, and I want to hear where you stand. Stay vigilant, stay informed. History is happening right now, and you are living through it. We will see you in the next update.